So, Business Insights, June 2023. I had to think about that for a minute. Dates get confused in your mind. With Business Insights, every month we do a couple of interview sessions, and we quite enjoy hearing from people on the screen and with us in the meeting. We have an opportunity to let people introduce themselves when they're here regularly, just who's in the room. And we also look for a little bit of expert advice each time. And I'd like to welcome this morning Derek Hettenbach. Now, Derek he's come to Business Insights from, you can see on screen if you're looking at this on the video, he's involved in low carbon and electric installations in a sustainable way. Derek, can I just, before we go very far, can I just ask you to introduce yourself and introduce your business and what you do, and we'll sort of take it from there. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. So my business is a limited company with a trading as. So I am Renewables Limited, not renewables, but renewables, because we need to do it now. But I trade as Better Business Connections. So if anybody wants to see the website, it's betterbusinessconnections.co.uk. So my business is around giving independent advice to people and to help them in the transition over to renewable energies. So where most people in the industry will work for a single installing company or a single business, I actually give people the options of several different people that they might want to consider working with, so that everything is in-house, everything is a one-stop solution with renewable energy.
Brilliant.
So with the domestic side of things, solar panels and battery storage for individual homes, that takes up a lot of my time. But of course, I also deal with commercial and larger scale installations on the solar side of things, which is a longer lead time, a lot more intensive on calculations and things like that. So it's a nice blend, probably of 60% domestic and 40% commercial. And I also have a lot of different styles of installation for people. So normally you would find someone coming there to convince you to put panels onto your roof, suspended above the roof tiles. But we also have the options of having them integral, so built into the roof structure itself. And also fairly uniquely in this country, I also deal with the solar tiles, which is a complete roof solution that puts solar generating tiles to replace standard tiles. Now that of course is mostly for architects and into design for new builds, but also for luxury properties and refurbishment projects. So it wouldn't, sorry, carry on.
No, I was just going to ask, how do you see the future of energy across the UK? Because we're in a really strange place, as I would observe at the moment.
Yeah.
This discussion has been going on for a very long time, since its infancy. We then move into a space where people begin to see effects. We see climate change. It's tightened it up. People know that this has got to happen, and yet we're in a sort of political governance system which struggles to keep up, and we can maybe touch a little bit on that later. But how do you see the future actually? Where's it going? What do you, if you had to sit there and predict in your crystal ball, what would you say it's going to look like in the coming 5, 10 years, whatever?
Okay, so here's a nice little analogy for you. You should consider the infrastructure of the electricity supply in this country as a 1975 Ford Cortina Mark III, because we are, every single year, we are putting so much more demand on a system that probably hasn't been changed in your local area for the last 30 years. It's not been kept up to date, never has, in exactly the same way that, you know, your water supply and your drainage hasn't kept up to the demands. We use more electricity every single year because we all buy extra devices. We all have at least one phone, one iPad, one computer, all of these things. So the stress on the system is considerable. And we are now putting in infrastructures for the electric vehicle charging. And on a local basis, that puts a hell of a loading on the what they call the distribution area that you're in. So the district I don't know, it's a node, really, is struggling. Now the thing is, we all know that we need to be more self-sufficient. The problem again is that everybody is expecting the government to do it all for you, and no they can't, and no they shouldn't, and no they won't. You have a situation where you have an opportunity to create your own free electricity with the solar panels. The difference is that you should not look at it as it was originally presented to everybody in the early days of, we'll give you lots of money back for what you generate, so that your return on investment was very much a case and projected as, how long before I get my money back? And that's not really the way it should be looked at now. It's an investment in your property. It's a hedge and an investment in the future to reduce your costs moving forward. And on the investment side of things, it's very much a case of, if you had what is an average installation cost for 12 panels and a reasonable size battery storage, if you had 12,500 to 13,500 pounds to invest in something that will bring you between 12 and 15, 16% return on your investment, as an alternative to that, stick it in an ISA or a savings plan that has even an element of risk, and you're getting 4, maybe 5% at the moment.
So then, just a question around what you were saying there about the infrastructure and how it goes forward. Obviously, new builds that are going on along at the moment don't, forgive me, I'm showing my ignorance here, I'm not in the building and construction industry, but but it's not obvious that they would have the stuff you're talking about there before you can get to ground source heat pumps, and it's got a whole story in its own right, and everything else. They're just not integral in planning law and the incentivization for developers. So as the average layman sits there and looks at the situation and relates exactly to everything you're saying, you go, well, that's retrofitting old property up to this point, but why on earth, as a country, are we not developing it integral into new property?
Basically because successive governments have been scared of the large home builders and planning. This could quite easily be encompassed by just a simple change in the planning legislation. You will possibly know that every single new build property now has to have an electric vehicle charge point at the planning stage. But what they've tended to do over the years is they've given the construction companies, the home builders, the large home builders, they've given them the option of whether they want to include the solar panel installations as part of their initial brief of having 2 renewable or 2 green technologies in the property. And of course, the reluctance of the home builders to actually put a premium product onto a property that would increase the cost of that building by, let's say, if they were putting a 4-panel system on, which is sort of the bare minimum, you would be looking at probably £6,000 worth of investment by those companies. But their directors and their board and their shareholders would expect to be making a profit on top of the cost of the installation. So you would then have £10,000 worth of cost put onto a property, and the home builders don't think that people will actually pay £10,000 more for their property, and so they don't give you the option. Whereas most people, if they knew they were having that system installed, it makes it more desirable. So
the question, so in the conversations you have with people looking at this, you know, if you had a notional, let's use round numbers, £100,000 purchase of a property without any of this technology on, and then you had the property next door with the technology on, would you see that that has got a real market value in terms of what your home buyer would be prepared to pay? I mean, irrespective of what the builders think, what do you think from what you see in your
if you've got two exact properties in exactly the same area, so two people next door to each other, one with solar panels on, one without, the one with the solar panels on would normally sell quicker.
Okay.
There is normally an uplift in the pricing of it, not the cost of the solar panel system, because by rights, if you're buying the place with solar panels on, those panels could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years old.
Yeah.
Okay? But it makes the property more desirable because putting solar panels onto a property will increase the EPC value of the property by 1 notch, which is factored in on the pricing of the property. And again, it's the desirability. It could work conversely to that. And somebody might say, geez, look at the state of those panels. Those are the old ones with the big spangly bits in the middle, and I hate the look of those things. So there are drawbacks, but the fact is, if a modern system as it is now is going to save you approximately £1,200 to £1,500 in running costs a year, then you know, I'm not considering the battery storage, which could add another £800 or so onto the value returning to you. You know, most people would choose the most energy efficient one.
No, I can get that. Interesting. It's a really interesting dynamic because, of course, it's not just the return on free electricity; it's the property value as it goes. And
but it's not. Look, it's not. Dr. Google is a dreadful thing for my industry. Because Dr. Google, you know, you put in there, will solar panels increase the value of my home? And you'll get a posting by the government from 2012 that some people will use as a sales tool to say it will raise your property value by 10%. No, it won't. You know, it is literally a case of, does it make it more desirable? What is the cost of the equipment that you want to factor in, and also factor in the age of it?
So just changing this direction a little bit for the moment, how do you see, I mean, again, if we look at electric vehicles, again, a parallel, but obviously quite different discussion. Electric vehicles, I was involved in an electric vehicle project way back in 2010 and 11. Things have come an awfully long way since then. We have this directive that new vehicles on diesel and fossils are going to be not on the forecourts in not very many years' time. Electric is the way forward, and it's an interesting, when I did that work way back, you know, it becomes clear that you can look at alternative things like hydrogen and what have you, but you still at the end of the day have an electric motor that is making the wheels go round. It's purely how that is fueled, whether it's coming out of a battery or an alternative fuel source. So there's lots of debate about where electric cars are going. One of the big things around that obviously is the fact the UK, I think globally as well, but we're talking about the UK here, is way behind the game in terms of the infrastructure support for that. And there's speculation from those who then start thinking it through about where the HGV infrastructure goes, which obviously is not in any way unconnected with the big wide picture of infrastructure. So what's your take on that? How do you see that going in what are challenging times? How do you see that work?
Well, infrastructure is already well underway to catch up with what anticipated demand is. You know, not everybody has the luxury of being an end terrace with a parking area right next to them, as I am, so that you can fit one on your home. Not everybody has a driveway that you can fit one in. But EV charging, yes, the forecourts are going to be changing, particularly on the larger forecourts, the motorway infrastructure and what have you, just on the basis that a company called GridServe is already well underway with providing, 30, 40 charge points at certainly on the M25, the ring road there. There are proposals for, I think, 8 more on the M1, possibly 1 on the M40, that sort of thing. But the difficulty is that it has to come from somewhere. The energy has to come from somewhere. Where are we going to get the extra energy from? I know people absolutely hate solar farms. Of course they do. They don't like the look of them. And the biggest argument that we always have is you're taking away good farmland to put a solar farm in. And that's very, very, very rare that it would even be considered. The majority of solar farms, when you see applications going in, those are in areas where there hasn't been a crop grown on those areas of land for probably 15, 20 years. It's low grade land. And you now, something that I push very much, you now have an opportunity to combine the use of that land, not only by having panels put in such a way that you can have sheep grazing or things like that, but you now have what is called the agri PV world, particularly coming in from influence from France and Germany, where you have the panels slightly raised over and above the land underneath, which can create then a microclimate underneath them, which means that land, from being basically rough grazing land or just mounds and mounds of turf and nothing growing on it, you can actually repurpose all of the land underneath that to grow soft fruits and various different crops, so that you're actually increasing the agricultural land rather than taking it away.
Yeah.
And we need to have a power source. We need to have an infrastructure to provide electricity. And if nobody wants a little mini nuclear plant somewhere near them, then what alternatives have we got?
Okay. So it's interesting. There are a couple of questions coming up in the chat box, and I think we'll just turn over to a couple of questions in a second.
Yeah.
And John's put a couple of questions in, and I will invite you in a second, John, but Jackie's just put a question that's completely pertinent to what we've just been talking about. So Jackie, do you want to just voice that yourself, and then we'll go to John's question?
Yeah, my concern is, I know that they're putting in infrastructure in for charge points, but what about all these remote areas like Scotland and Wales and that kind of thing? Like, it's a massive area. And I'm thinking, where are they going to put the power points for cars there? Because, people still travel in those areas.
Every single local council, every single region of the UK is already implementing, and these things take time to get through planning, but they are already implementing. And that one of the things with range anxiety, which is pretty much what you're referring to there, is there will be, over the next couple of years, a charge point at the bare minimum within 10 miles of where you live. Wherever you are in the whole of the UK, there will be a charge point there if you don't have a charge point yourself, which of course you can do. But it's very much like saying that I have range anxiety because I don't have a petrol station attached to my house that I can top my car up with. We all have to actually travel to a petrol station to fill up. It needs a change in, obviously, your attitude to traveling. But if you've got even one of the lower powered electricity vehicles now, you've still got a range of 150 to 200 miles. It's not really the sort of the average travel distance for the majority of people, but you just need to plan your routes. And with all of the different apps that there are now, I've got 3 apps on my phone, that you will find a charge point that you can charge up if you don't provide one for yourself. but there is still support for you to actually, you know, have a charge point yourself.
As long as there's nobody else using it.
Well, yeah, yes, of course, but then sometimes you have to queue for the pump at the petrol station as well. You know, there are thousands of charge points already going through planning, thousands of them. So I can understand that there's the range anxiety, but you know, when motor cars first came out, you had to go to a specific place 30 miles away. You know, in the States, you had to go to the chemists. You had to go to the pharmacy in the States to get it dispensed.
We talked about innovation and product development there, and it will take time, but I guess the infrastructure will somehow have to catch up. Otherwise, all things can fall over, isn't it? Can I just obviously we need to keep moving, and that's interesting. John, I know you've got a couple of questions that you've put in the chat box. Do you want to just put voice to those?
Yeah, and just quickly, one of our company cars is a Tesla, and it takes some time. What you do, you need to plan your journey on the app. It tells you where the charging points are. It tells you where the fast chargers are. And 99% of the time, all you do is plan a coffee break for 20 minutes out to your journey, which is better driving habits. But that's another thing. But that's the use of, the practical use is that we've never, ever had an issue, just for people's confidence.
Yeah, it just needs a change in the way that you do things.
Bit of planning.
You know?
So my couple of questions, just quick, Derek. The first one was around energy rebates, and if you put one of these solars up and you don't use as much as you return to the grid, do you get a payment on that? What's this current story?
Right. So the situation up until 3 years ago was that the government incentivized people by giving them what was called the feed-in tariff. That was originated to kickstart an industry that didn't exist in this country. In 2011, there were probably only 200 solar panel installations in the whole country. So they dangled the hook of money to get people to consider it, because it wasn't readily accepted in this country. In Europe, they're 10, 15 years ahead of us. But in this country, they had to lead us by the nose by offering us money. It got to the point 3 years ago where the incentive was not about when do I get my money back. It's very much a case of how do I save myself from the increasing electricity costs, and how can I make something less expensive, which is therefore my return on investment. What we're doing now, particularly for domestic, is because we are specifying battery storage for people, there actually shouldn't be surplus electricity to go back anywhere, because the idea of those systems is that anything which is surplus to the immediate demand of your house, because it's drip feeding electricity into your circuitry, anything that is produced that is over and above what your house is demanding diverts and is stored in a battery. So that then later on in the evenings, you have the potential for draining that battery through the circuitry of the house to further support you through. And if you are with a provider that will allow you a split rate, a nighttime rate, and a lot of them are doing specific EV charging rates, then you have an opportunity, instead of paying, you know, the average of 33p as it is now for domestic, you have the opportunity of being able to charge at 9, 10, 11, 12 pence at night to fill your battery at the same time, fill your car. In the morning, by rights, you should have a full car, and you should also have a full battery, which will support you round until production starts up again and you start to use the solar.
Yeah. Okay, the other question, just, and I realise time's getting shorter, is there's a lot of talk around electric and solar and requirements for silicon and semiconductors in particular, and the impact that the mining of silicon has on the planet, both in mining, transport, as well as the refining process. What are your thoughts there?
It's better than oil. It's better than all of the infrastructure, the cost, the pollution of oil. It's not a perfect solution. Nothing is a perfect solution. There is not one single thing in the whole of my industry that is without some form of payback. There is always going to be an argument. The one that comes up more often than the silicon side of things, which is basically silicon you can create in a lab, just not for the numbers that are needed. It's, you know, it's a natural element. It's there everywhere. You know, you walk on the beach, you're walking on silicon, basically. But the greatest argument is put forward as the mining of lithium for the batteries. Now, battery technology is changing all of the time. The differences I've seen over even the last 5 years has been tremendous. They are moving away from lithium. But here's the other question that nobody else seems to ask. If you don't want to have the mining for lithium for car batteries, what are you going to do with all of your Duracell batteries for all of the domestic handsets that you have and for all of the mobile phones that you have? They all use lithium. It's not just being mined for electric vehicles. It can't really be put forward as the argument, just, you know, having the scapegoat as electric vehicles. You have to consider that that is already being mined, is already being utilized in every electrical device that has a battery. But the technology is changing.
Guys, we could go on this discussion for a long, and it is a really fascinating discussion, and it's great to do a deep dive sometimes. One very quick one-liner before I hand back to Jill. I know Anna's got a question there, and I'm just going to voice it for you, Anna, there. Very simply, these days, how long does it take to charge an electric car? There's going to be a range of answer. What's the top and the bottom answer?
Yeah. Look, it depends on what rate you're charging it at. So if you're on single phase electricity, which pretty much every single domestic property is on in this country, you will be charging at a maximum of 7 kilowatts an hour, more likely 3.5, because your system will only allow what it's not using to come through the circuitry to charge your car.
What does that turn into in terms of time?
Probably from pretty much flat and empty, probably about 6 to 8 hours on a 7 kilowatt charge. Something like a Tesla, something like some of the new Hyundais and some of the more modern specification cars, you can do fast charges. Those are normally points outside of your home because they will be on 3-phase, and you can go from a 20% to an 80% charge in something like 18 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's about 20 minutes on the motorway and about overnight.
Brilliant. Derek, thank you so much, and absolutely especially so because Derek very bravely stepped in at literally no notice, other than me checking a couple of hypothetical questions in the chat box. But that was actually really interesting. We would have planned that and not achieved a lot more. Thank you so much.
No, that's all right.
You're very welcome. It's brilliant. Jill, back to you, and I suspect Albert.
Thanks, Pete. Hi, welcome back, Albert. Hopefully we'll have a bit more success this time. So, you were going to tell us about your organisation and your role in it before you got rudely interrupted by your internet going down.
Okay, so my name is Albert. Again, Albert Jerony. I'm in Ghana, and my organization is Thunder Dancers Foundation. It's a charitable organization where we help the homeless kids, giving them a home, education, and also a career. We focus on their career, which is the choreography. At least that is what we have. And that is what we have people who have donated themselves, who have dedicated their time to train these kids at currently. So currently we are focusing on the choreography for now. And that is where we earn income also from. And my role is I'm the founder and also a supervisor of this organization. And also currently we do have 20 kids and 2 parents under the foundation.
So is it a community that's very local to you geographically, or are you starting to expand, who you're interacting with?
Yeah, we are intending to extend who we are interacting with, but currently it's sort of local.
And how do you get people involved? Is it just word of mouth, or are you doing a lot of marketing?
No, it's not just word of mouth. We have people involved visiting the chiefs. We have the chiefs in the community. We visit them. We also have the schools in the community. We also have some families and business people in the community where we talk to them, we negotiate with them, and they dedicate what they have to support. And also we have my brothers who are my family that also support me.
And so then how does the Dance Foundation work for the children? Do they come? Are you teaching them to dance, or is it a sharing of existing dances, or what's the sort of format that they come to?
Yeah, with the Dancer Foundation, what we do, we focus with the kids in the dancing is we do all dance. We do the culture, we do international, we do all dance, we do all sorts of dance. So, because most events that we attend, what they expect from us to come perform is what we have to go perform, because there is a trophy ahead, and the requirement is what you need to go and showcase to the world, to your adversaries. So we just do everything. Fantastic. And they are quick learners.
And do you post lots of videos around this? Can we go and watch it all on YouTube and things?
Yeah, currently there's been less videos about it, but I'm now uploading them. I'm now beginning to upload them on my YouTube channel. It's the BI Change Era. If you check on my YouTube channel, it's the BI Change Era. I'm now about to upload the videos, but we have one video over there that you can go and watch on my YouTube channel.
Yes, I'm sure people would love to go and see it. So we know that generally in the arts space, it's to actually generate revenue. So how does the business model work for your foundation?
Yeah, so how we generate revenue is through events that we attend. We generate revenues there, and we also generate some revenues from sponsorships, as well as we also generate revenues. As I said earlier on, we have the chiefs involved. So some of the chiefs, we talk to them, there are some parts some events that we need to travel to other regions which are far, and it would cost us much. So we have the chiefs involved in sponsoring us with the TNT, where we have to go. At times our costumes also cost. So we have some friends that also donate, giving us the costumes for stage performances. And we have, since the kids are also into education, we have some schools that we have deals with them, where we have programs with them, so they help us into adapting the kids to school, where we don't pay as high as we are supposed to pay.
Oh, okay. So they help by sort of under sponsoring the pieces, yeah. And do you feel that those revenue streams are fairly solid, or are they quite vulnerable to being withdrawn or changing?
It's not solid. It's very, very bad, but that's how you can manage it in Ghana. When it comes to Ghana and Africa, it's very, very bad, because per show, when we perform per show, we earn less. It's very down. Approximately $10 per show, and it's very bad for us.
Yeah.
So we have to go extra mile. We have to look for more events in order to earn more. And at times I have to do other stuff aside the foundation, aside organizing, supervising the foundation. I have to do other stuff, hardworking, and then so I can generate much income for the kids, because focusing on only the shows that we perform, it's very, very down. And when you talk to them, they also tell you it's about the marketing. So what's in the market, that's how Ghana system runs. You have to manage it. So
very challenging, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say is the largest impact you have on the community through this foundation? What do you see change?
The Thunder Dancers Foundation has made a very large impact since we started adapting. We have these 20 kids, and even these two parents, we've changed the lives of these kids. 3 years ago, comparing it to now, the illicit behaviors of other kids that are not under our care, that are homeless under our care, are beginning to commit bad behaviors. They are beginning to practice. The females are beginning to engage themselves into sexual immoralities, and then the males are also being into the crime scene, attacking, where you see a 7-year-old kid stealing, robbing at that age. But we have these kids under us where they are not doing it, because they are always indoors. When they go out, it's either to perform or to school to educate.
So it's making a big difference, yeah?
Yeah.
How did COVID affect you?
Well, COVID, when we talk about COVID, I always remember whenever I hear the name COVID, I hear where we come from, because Standard Dancers Foundation started few months ago before COVID.
Oh, yeah.
And the foundation survives on events that we attend, events that we partake. So COVID struck us down in a huge part because we had to go lockdown, and going lockdown, you weren't going out to perform anywhere. The question is, how are you going to survive for these kids? That was one of the bad moments that we ever experienced, starting the foundation to help and then being struck by this.
And did, I mean, obviously for a lot of businesses, COVID changed how that business model worked, and they've come out of it looking slightly different. Has that changed how the foundation is working? Have you made tweaks to it because of the pandemic?
No. But like I always say this thing, that a successful business person must be able to survive all weather. You don't need to only focus at one side. You will need to be ready for all weather. When COVID got in, we were struck, they sat down thinking about how to survive through it. So this was the way we made. Every month our government releases us for one day to refresh and rejuvenate ourselves. So instead of going out to buy, purchase and refresh, we organize events for that one day. And most people attended these events that we attended. And this has helped us enough to be more popular in Ghana here, as when we talk about dancers, because we had opportunity to attend TV shows, TV events, and also visited different regions, had calls on different regions in Ghana for us to come perform. It has really helped us, and it even helped us to reach some sponsorships during those times, sponsored from Europe during those times.
So what does the future hold, and what's your greatest challenge, and what's your greatest opportunity?
Yeah, what the future holds for Thunder Dancers is to extend what we are doing. We can't only help because we have more kids in the street, more kids in Ghana, more kids in many regions that we visit that are homeless. We want to extend and give them a hope, assurance that whatever it is, they can survive. They don't need to practice vile behaviors for surviving. They can survive by doing something for themselves. That's one greatest thing the future holds for us. Our greatest fear is also with the sponsorships that has dwindled ever since the Russia and Ukraine war. Sponsorships have dwindled. We've lost most sponsorships and most partnerships. They've all taken away their deals because of the Russia and Ukraine war, which has affected the marketing system here. And these are greatest of fear. But we are looking forward to also doing more and also seeing if we could have sponsorship outside Ghana, because Ghana government doesn't support when you are running a charity fund. Ghana government doesn't do anything to it. So we're looking forward to having sponsorships from the above.
So are you excited about the future?
Yeah, I'm so much excited about the future. When I talk about the future, I look at one of my brothers who is a marketing director that helped us. He's done a great job, and I always mention his name wherever I go, and I'll never take the name off me until I'm dead. That's the only thing that's going to take the name off me. He's helped us on most events throughout the regions. He helped us located most of these events, and he had the deals done accurately for us. So we are expecting to also help him go out there, either to any European country, to the States, anywhere, so he could be able to help us locate other events. Because our dream is to perform on the America's Got Talent or the Britain's Got Talent. That is our dream. So, and he's good in terms of deal making and marketing. So we are also aiming to help him get there and help our dream. So when it comes to the future, I'm happy with it.
Fantastic. So we've got time for a couple of quick questions. Anybody got anything they'd like to ask Albert? Definitely worth having a catch up with Albert, I think, offline to find out more about. And obviously if anybody's got any connections into America's Got Talent, then that would be good to share out. Thanks, Albert. That was really, really interesting. I think it's a fantastic thing you're doing, and we wish you every success with it, and hope you do secure some sponsorship from outside Ghana so it makes it more sustainable.